there's also a lot of insecurity among couples that transcends into toxicity, transcends into abuse, be it emotional abuse, physical abuse. What's the best way to avoid all these and like have a healthy relationship?
I feel being a couple is very tricky. It's a very me as the husband have learned messages of how to be a husband from my father and seen my mother being how my mother is, how a wife is meant to be, and that's my unconscious blueprint of how couples are meant to be. Now, and they have learned it from their two sets of parents, right? So my nana nani and my dada dadi, right? So there is this coming. Now my wife comes and she has learned it from her parents and how to be, and now we are like, okay, let's figure these things out.
That's very complex.
It's very complex. It's very, very complex. So the idea is that I feel sometimes this big desire in us is to fix the other person. If I can fix her, things will be fine in our marriage, right? Or if I fix, so the idea is to, and there's no fixing here. This is a way of, you know, being together and being authentic and be like, this is what I'm struggling with. It's no one's fault. When we start finding faults, then this is where the defenses come up, right? We feel unsafe. So we either like shout, take dur raho mujhse, or we withdraw, or whatever we say, right?
That's me.
Sounds
like me.
So the intention is to be like, okay, this is what's coming up for me, what's coming up for you, and work through it. Of course, there are couples counselors and everything like that, magar it's a very like the relationships are very dynamic. Stuff is happening. You have a stressful day at work and you come home and you want support, but then you don't know how to seek support because men are not supposed to seek support. So you just pretend to be tough, and your wife says something which triggers you, and now you are like, okay, she's a bad person because she doesn't understand. I'm going through all this thing, and your cycle script starts, right? So you kind of react in a way, and the wife is like, okay, like he doesn't love me anymore, and he's not caring, and like he's only in his work. All the script starts coming up. And when we're acting and playing out those scripts unconsciously. So the idea is to take a pause and reflect, okay, what's happening?
I read somewhere that like if you're fighting with your spouse or your girlfriend or your fiance, know that you're not fighting with each other, you're fighting the problem. So उस problem को सही करना और मिल के सही करना है. So like if you have resentments towards me, or if I have complaints towards you, it doesn't mean that you are the enemy. The problem is the enemy.
So right and wrong जो चीज़ है कि you know like you're right or I'm wrong, that is an unproductive discussion. It doesn't take us anywhere. And a lot of times we also project our own insecurity to our partners. If I feel that like, you know, I'm not good enough, we somehow like, you know, project it on our partners by making a situation where we're like, okay, she's not good enough or he's not good enough, because it makes us feel better.
Acha, there's like a lot of rivalry among couples as well. Could be if they're dual income. So sometimes, I mean, it has been observed that
when you say rivalry between a couple, husband and wife, or a part like two spouses,
and same goes for sibling rivalry as well. Sibling rivalry is a big thing.
Of course.
मुझे इतना अंदाज़ा नहीं था, but now that I look back, होती थी. And like siblings get jealous of each other because if someone is observing preferential treatment, so there used to be an outburst. How do people deal with that? If your own siblings, देखो अगर तो for the partner, that's someone you chose, or in most cases in Pakistan you didn't, but you can get out of that situation. You can leave your partner. You can't leave your sister. You can't leave your mother. Right? Parents की भी अपनी toxicity होती है, ठीक है? And then like you can't leave your house. आप बहन भाई तो नहीं छोड़ सकते. So how do you deal in those situations?
There's a concept of boundaries. And the definition of boundaries is what's okay and what's not okay. And part of our process of this growth process is we get to know okay, what's okay and what's not okay for me. And we set our boundaries. So that means कि for example हमारे घर में सब लोग एक साथ खाना खाते हैं, and if it's something which is too much for you, you set a boundary. Be like, okay, I'm going to eat 3
Separately.
days, I'm going to be alone, and 2 days I'm there with an intention that whatever they say is not about me, it talks about them. It's their stuff, their material which has been thrown at me, right? We can't change anyone. That's the that's not in our control. आपने थोड़ी देर पहले बात करी थी कि what's in our control and what is not. I would say so pain is inevitable, suffering is a choice.
Yes.
Right? So if whatever toxicity is coming from my siblings or my parents, and it gets very tricky because if you add religion and society, it feels like I feel guilty. How can I think about my parents like this, right? Because they're the ones who brought me in this world, and मैं कैसा बेटा हूँ, मैं कैसी बेटी हूँ, and भाई बहन तो मुझे साथ रहते हैं, खुश रहते हैं. So all those kind of messages which I've heard, right? So there's a lot of in this process there's a lot of period of self-doubt because you're rebuilding your identity. And when we're rebuilding something, there's a lot of fragility which comes with rebuilding. आपको नई चीज़ शुरू करते हैं, शुरू में it's very fragile. It takes time to solidify, right? So boundary setting is also not an easy thing because you will hear think कि तुम्हारा दिमाग खराब हो गया, तुम इतने selfish हो, you only care about yourself. What kind of a brother are you? What kind of like all those kind of messages you will get, right? But that's the process. We kind of like set as the name boundary suggests that this is not okay. I'm not going to indulge into this.
अगर आपने क्लिप एंजॉय किए तो पूरी वीडियो देखने के लिए कमेंट पे दिए गए लिंक पे क्लिक कीजिए और मेरे मेन चैनल को सब्सक्राइब करना नहीं भूलिएगा ताकि आपको वक्त के साथ साथ अपडेट्स मिलती रहे। बहुत शुक्रिया।